Item number 10, discussion and direction regarding City of Maywood Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Staff, can I get a report, please?
Thank you. So this staff report was previously brought to the council on July 22nd. Prior to that staff report, staff has been coordinating with the county and following state updates as it relates to obtaining emergency rental assistance funds for the City of Maywood. We have been successful at finding rental assistance programs and helping the families through our food banks, as well as helping other funding sources. Earlier during this meeting, it was mentioned about how cities through the community infrastructure renewal actually assisted 63 Maywood residents and provided them with financial assistance. Furthermore, I just want to flag it again. The Board of Supervisors has their CARES Act funds of $100 million. Maywood is part of a targeted area that's included within there. So 50% of that $100 million is going to go to those in the targeted area, and Maywood is included in there. So, that's another good resource to get funding for rental assistance right away. And again, the number there is 211. And that rental assistance also, it doesn't matter whether you're documented or undocumented, because those funds go straight to a landlord. But furthermore, since July 22nd, staff has received our first of several of the CARES Act allocations from the state. We've received an allocation of $344,534, and the allocations that were given by the state.
Can you speak up a little bit louder and get the microphone closer to you?
Sure. So with those funds, we received $344,534. The funds are awarded to cities to help them recover from the millions of dollars of unanticipated emergency spending to protect their residents and prevent further spread of the virus. The city is estimating an expenditure of approximately $130,668 in expenses and future expenses up until December 31st, 2020. These funds need to be expended rapidly. There is a deadline of September 1st for us to report how we're going to be spending these funds. And furthermore, it's important that we expend them prior to October so that we don't run the risk of the state calling them back. The $130,668 that we've expended since the beginning of the COVID has been on personal protective equipment, sanitizing supplies, equipment, and furnishings to allow for a safe workplace, physical barriers to close our parks and other amenities within the park, additional cleaning at our facility and bus stops, equipment to allow for telecommuting and virtual meetings. So the remainder of the funds that we have from the CARES Act allocation is $213,866. And again, like I had just mentioned, we need to spend these funds immediately so that we don't risk the chance of losing them. So that $213,866 can be utilized for a city emergency rental assistance program. Furthermore, as we've been closing out our fiscal year, we've been able to identify an amount of about $200,000 in unprogrammed CDBG funds. These, again, are per capita grant funds that the city receives. As those are becoming available this month, that $200,000 unprogrammed community development block grant funds can also be allocated to a grant program such as what we're discussing today, the rental assistance program. Lastly, included in your July 22nd, the funding that was other grant funding that was identified as well was permanent local housing allocation program funds, which were set to receive $256,740 in funding, and that also can be utilized for a rental assistance program. So in total, what we have in front of us is a little bit over $650,000 of available funding through different grants. The grants include the CARES Act, CDBG, as well as the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program. Because they are specifically the CARES Act funds and the CDBG, because they are grant funds, it is encouraged that those are utilized first, so that we don't run the risk of losing those funds. And that concludes our report.
Thank you. So Again, I want to make it clear because obviously there's, with campaign season coming around and everything, there's a lot of misinformation going around and mischaracterization of what we're doing. At no point did I oppose any rental assistance program. At no point. In fact, what we stated was we know that we have special funds coming down the pipe that we can use for something like this. Case in point, Hub Cities was able to help 63 of our families already. I've heard from at least 6 of those families that have said, and they were undocumented. This money was for undocumented families that did not qualify for any other programs, and said, hey, I am now caught up on my rent. That's why it's important for us to take our time and look at partnerships and look at ways to find real solutions. Our staff has been working diligently to help secure some of this funding, which we can now use to run programs like this. Because the last thing Maywood or any city wants to do is tap into its general fund if it doesn't need to. A program like this should never be a political stunt. Rather, real solutions should be found. I had a question for Mr. Alvarez. In the resolution that you submitted along with your father-in-law, it's called the and I find this throughout your resolution, the COVID DERAP, DERAP. That appears several times throughout your resolution. Can you explain what DERAP stands for or what it means?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you mentioned, it is campaign season. And things do get worded differently. I want to start off with, we submitted this way we can work together. And as mentioned, when I did submit it, my advice to the city manager, this is the perfect time for us five to work together and make it better. So, I mean, as far as, thank you for letting us speak this so we don't have to go over each other. So yeah, this is the program. Unfortunately, I mean, you guys have been working on it, but unfortunately, because we're not working together or as a team, we're not aware of it. So you did mention that you started working on it, of course, once the proposal was brought up. So now we do know of it, but if we would have known about it, then we would have not been submitting something different. So as far as, I mean, fortunately, we weren't aware about that, so that's why that happened. As far as the COVID, what you're asking for, I mean, this is a program that we're trying to get. And as far as, I'm sorry, what did you ask again? What is what?
Throughout the resolution you submitted, there's a term that keeps coming up called, it's DERAP. It's DERAP. What does that mean? DERAP.
That what I applied for, and it's a program to try to help out. I don't have more definite, I mean.
But this is your resolution. So, but back to your point.
I mean, so back to your point, I understand. I mean, this is just something that was put in. Unfortunately, if I don't know certain terminology, I mean, by all means, add it or call it, or whatever it may be. I'm not trying to find an excuse. But the good thing is that we're talking together and that we do have the funds. As far as, I didn't really hear Jennifer, since if I may ask, I did see that the city did post about the program, and she did mention Maywood will be part of it, correct?
Yes, and so in the current staff report, it lays out all of the funding. Now, to your point of not knowing about it, Ms. Vasquez provided a staff report back in June where she did discuss this. So are you not getting the staff reports, or did you just not have a chance to read it? But there was information about this spelled out in that report.
I am getting to your question. I did get the reports.
You did get the reports. Okay, so it was mentioned in there. Also, back when, I don't know if you recall, back when we were discussing the housing element, we brought up the fact that by adopting a housing element and having the state recognize it and approving of that housing element, it would allow us to get more funding. We had that discussion. Part of that discussion was SB2 money would be made available to us, which would then allow us to do programs like this. However, I believe you and Mr. Medina voted against that housing element. So again, this is funding that's coming to us through the state because of the housing element, because we were able to adopt that. So I don't know if you're not understanding the agenda reports, and maybe we need to simplify them a little bit more, or perhaps there was an ulterior motive to that. But part of the funding that we're now getting to be able to put a program like this came through because of that housing element that the three of us adopted. So do you remember that discussion on the housing element?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
But I mean, at this point, my thing is, whatever we voted on before, I understand. But if there's ways or options to make it better to help them, that should be, I understand. And I mean, I understand you're nodding your head, I'm fine, I respect you. But whatever happened in the past, okay, but we need to stop worrying. I mean, I'm not going to say this stop worrying, let me rephrase that. There is campaign season that you mentioned, and I understand. I mean, you did mention part of that, fine, I respect you. But at this point, we need to work on now and helping residents. I understand if I don't remember, and I know that I voted no. I mean, I remember. But at this point, let's work together as a team and try to help the residents. Everything else, I mean, can discuss it later or whatever the case may be. I understand. I mean, I'm never going to sit there and vote for it. If I vote for something, I'll say it. And to this point, I've never denied a voting to your question.
And there was also in the resolution that you and Mr. Medina submitted, and I'm trying to find it now. I had it highlighted, but my flash drive crashed. But on here, and I'm trying to find it so I can read it directly from what you both submitted. It mentions that this DERAP program will be conducted. It says here, financial and programmatic monitoring of the operating agency will be conducted by Community Development Commission of the City of Downey Housing Successor Agency. That's in your proposal that you submitted. So if this was something that you were submitting to try to help our residents, why does it make mention of the City of Downey and their successor agency?
I mean, unfortunately, I'm not an expert in submitting them, and I apologize. Let me speak with Medina. He is who he is, but I have my own way of thinking. You wouldn't know that because, I mean, at this point, people when I came in, you late for me. But anyways, I don't think because I understand and I'm not into it to your level or your expertise, that's fine. I understand, but my point is, it was put in. As mentioned, I may not know a lot, and it was more of a drag, for example, just to try to put it in there for the same reason as I mentioned, I would like all five of us to work on it. It's not, I understand you mentioned election. It's not about an election. If we lose, fine, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, when I voted for a lot of things that, because we have money for it, even though we get mad and we talk about the kind of businesses, we came from a drought. That's another subject, but at this point, I mean, I don't think because I didn't put it in a certain way, it should affect the members. I'll get your point. There was a draft, for an example, I may not be someone to put it in as good as maybe I should, but my thing is just trying to help and do it. I mean, if I gotta work on it, I say I will have to work on it, but as far as the way I put it in, what I voted for, what I understand and I don't, I mean, I don't think that should be affecting to help out. And just to make it clear, as you mentioned, it is elections. I'll use your verbiage. I don't care where the money comes from, even if it doesn't come from the candidate, I mean, fine. Even if we don't need anything from the city, fine. At the end of the day, the whole point is to help and pay the rent. If our way didn't work, that's fine. But the good thing is that because we put it up there, a thought or a title or anything is nothing until you put it into action. And that's what I did. up to par, and I apologize to everyone in the city in advance, but that shouldn't be a reason why to stop anything. Because at the end of the day, it was just an example of what I saw, and I saw other seniors doing it. I seen Downey, I seen Los Angeles, Long Beach, I seen many things, so I'm sorry if that upsets you, because obviously you sound like you're upset.
Not at all.
Because I put it in, and I need to speak, please, that's rude. I've never disrespected or stuff. So at this point, it's to help and do it. Other cities are doing it, and that's my goal, is just, and we can help out. At the end of the day, verbiage, or because I put it in a certain way shouldn't affect it. And by all means, again, if you guys can make it happen and not, well, me and Medina put it in, my father-in-law, I mean, I can say that, however you want to word it. If we don't use that money from the cannabis revenue, that's fine. As long as we pay the rent, by all means, I don't care. Because let's say you guys said, hey, we worked on it, I understand. And I'm not bad on Jennifer, because at the end of the day, she's been working hard and trying it. But that's not her fault that us wives don't communicate and we don't work together, because it's obvious that we don't all get invited, or we don't talk the way we should. But at the end of the day, if we would have known where we were at, then maybe we would have not put that proposal and just work with you guys. Like, hey, you guys, you know, no matter what there's hate because of labels or relation or because of campaigns, at the end of the day, I could care less about that. If you guys would have came to us and said, hey, there's a plan, we're doing this is where we're at now, fine. But we had no idea. Is there a reason why we weren't informed? Because I know some have mentioned that we had a plan. I mean, by all due respect, if you hate me, that's fine, because at the end of the day, that's your opinion, you don't know me. But at this point, that's just my thought as far as someone, I mean, we're in a community that we all didn't go to college, and I mean, I understand, you can correct me all you want, if that's part of the game, you know, I could care less at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, that's why I'm doing it, because just to get help. I put it in, and I'm glad that you were able to fix it. And
Thank you. So to your point, no, I'm not upset. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand your solution here. And the reason, I'm not sure if you're aware of the Brown Act, but that's why when you say, why didn't nobody tell us? Well, it would be a Brown Act violation if more than 2 council members spoke on the same item. That's why the communication went through our city staff. And at the last council meeting, we did try to talk about it. We did try to work on it, but you all weren't having any of it. So that's where we're at. Mr. Medina, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Primero que nada quiero aclarar que la idea de mencionar que estamos en tiempo de elección, quiero aclarar que no tiene nada que ver una elección con el propósito de tratar de ayudar a una comunidad que está en una necesidad de emergencia en realidad. Tenemos que ver honestamente sus palabras, que precisamente ahora que se propuso usar $600,000 del cannabis, de la marihuana, para ayudar a los residentes a pagar su renta, ahora surgen muchos programas donde se puede agarrar dinero y ayudar a nuestra comunidad, o simplemente hacérselas más fácil, mandarlos al condado a que apliquen, donde nunca Maywood ha mandado gente al condado a aplicar por dinero, ¿ok? Y desafortunadamente te des aires de grandeza porque piensas que lo sabes todo.
No,
Pero bueno, ¿ok? Pero lo que importa aquí es que tenemos una comunidad con una necesidad grande, es una emergencia grande, tenemos el dinero. Hace 10 días, un solo negocio trajo $576,000, que tengo conocimiento que tú mismo estuviste ahí mirando que contaron el dinero.
That's not true.
Okay? No es cierto.
That's not true, sir.
Y que estés al pendiente de que venga todo ese dinero y no tengas el corazón de ayudar a esta comunidad con $600,000 para ayudarles a pagar su renta y saques todo ese rastra de mentiras que hay unos viene dinero del condado, del federal y todo eso, ¿ok? ¿Dónde está el dinero? Nosotros tenemos. Hace 10 días, tú mismo fuiste testigo, le trajeron el dinero a la ciudad. Nosotros podemos ayudar a nuestra gente porque tenemos el dinero, tenemos una emergencia y podemos crear un sistema que se le puede dar a las personas, quizás 500 o 400 o lo que sea, ¿ok? Pero no puedes usar la excusa de que viene la elección o que no tenemos el dinero. No hay excusas. Tenemos 2.5 millones de dólares del cannabis, ¿ok? Ahora te preocupas del fondo general y todo lo que ese dinero puede hacer en una caja de savings. Pues ahí no sirve el dinero es para invertirlo, y especialmente en una comunidad pobre con una necesidad grande, ¿ok? Entiendo toda esa política y todo esto, a Maywood, con todo respeto, ¿ok? Pero si gastamos $600,000 de cannabis ahorita, ¿ok? ¿Por qué no sigamos trabajando? Le ayudamos a la comunidad con $600,000 y si esos programas vienen hacia Maywood, ¿por qué no nos tengamos la posibilidad de recuperar ese dinero nosotros, la ciudad, de recuperar ese dinero cuando llegue y nos ponemos actualmente a ayudar a nuestra gente ahorita que lo necesitan, ahorita, ¿ok? No vamos a esperar por 4 o 5 meses después de que los hayan sacado de sus apartamentos y se conviertan en homeless. Esa gente está en la calle con sus hijos o los saquen porque la moratoria de 3 meses de que no los sacaran de sus apartamentos ya se expiró y la gente va a comenzar a tener problemas. La gente, y tienen problemas actualmente. Mucha gente está siendo hostigadas por los dueños de los apartamentos porque hay que entender que los dueños de propiedades también pagan a los bancos y si los bancos no le están dando la oportunidad de esperar, pues también ellos tienen problemas. Son seres humanos tratando de sobrevivir también, no porque son dueños de una casa y ya tienen un montón de dinero. Esa gente necesita recibir su renta para hacer un pago de su casa. Alcalde, con todo respeto, todos esos programas que vienen, si de veras vienen, vamos usando ese dinero para recuperar los $600,000 que proponemos que se le den a la gente de Maywood, ¿ok? Y si toma 4 o 5 meses, bien, pero al menos ya resolvimos parte del problema, fuimos parte de una solución, ¿ok? Con eso, alcalde, I mean, ¿qué más le puedo pedir?
I want to respond to your comments. So first of all, I'm not sure if you're not understanding what we said, which is the funding is already here. It's already ours. So that's not a lie. It's in the report. The money is already here. Second of all, I'm really disappointed that after 5 years, you don't understand the difference between restricted funds and non-restricted funds. There is no cannabis fund. First of all, there's a general fund and then there's special funds. Second of all, we can't recover that money because the restricted funds can only be used in a certain manner. So for you to say, let's spend the money and then use the special funds to recover those funds, that's not how it works, sir. That's not how restricted funds work. So I'm not sure if you're not understanding that part, but there is money already here. Second of all, I would appreciate if you wouldn't lie about me being in count rooms and observing money. That's not true. That couldn't be further from the truth. So please let me finish, sir. Let me finish. Thank you. And so, no, there isn't. These are special funds, and as our city manager said, they have to be expended or we lose them. Do you understand that concept? If we don't spend that money, we lose it. So we have to use those funds that we already have, that have already been allocated to the city of Maywood. Mr. Marquez, you've been raising your hand. Go ahead, sir.